No sign anybody's followed General Nat.
My brothers in God, the serpent is loosed amongst the lambs. He sinks his venomous fangs into their flesh again and again and again. And when they die, when he has savaged them until they are worn out and weakened to death from his poison, he simply preys upon a new generation from God's flock of lambs. So who shall fight against this serpent which will devour all of us?
General Nat! General Nat!
Who?
General Nat!
God has called me. And like Moses, I tried to deny his will. Like Moses, I surrender myself, my will to his. Like Moses, I've been called to lead my people from bondage. Like Moses, I call my people to a hard and bloody war.
Before I get into the importance of the confession and why Turner led the rebellion, I will provide some brief background on the interview itself. Thomas Gray, a lawyer at that time, visited Nat Turner in prison. Before the interview started, Gray asked Turner if he was willing to be interviewed. Turner consented, and the interview began. The interview's date was November 1st, 1831, exactly 10 days before Turner was to be sent to the gallows for his execution. During the whole interview, Gray wrote as much as he could, recording Nat Turner's statements about what had happened in the rebellion in full detail.
You have asked me to give you the history of the motives which induced me to undertake the late insurrection, as you call it. To do so, I must go back to the days of my infancy and even before I was born.
Turner, a Chromatin slave, was born into slavery on October 2nd, 1800, in Southampton County, Virginia, to slaveholder Benjamin Turner's farm. His mother, Nancy Turner, was an African queen by birth before they came and kidnapped her from Africa. His father was also a slave. Nat's father ran away when Nat was just 8 or 9 years old. Nat was married to a slave named Cherry sometime in the early 1820s. They had 3 children, but in 1821, when Nat Turner's second owner died, Nat was separated from his family. Nat was sold to a farmer named Thomas Moore. Cherry and the children were sold to another plantation owner, Giles Reese, who lived next door to Thomas Moore. During that period of time, Nat was getting a vision from God telling him to do something about slavery. He recounts in his confession that even when he was young, his family believed he surely would be a prophet, as the Lord had shown me things that had happened before my birth. And my father and mother strengthened me in this my first impression, saying in my presence I was intended for some great purpose, which they had always thought from certain marks on my head and breast. And about this time I had a vision, and I saw white spirits and black spirits engaged in battle, and the sun was darkened, the thunder rolled in the heavens, and blood flowed in streams, and I heard a voice saying, "Such is your luck, such you are called to see, and let come rough or smooth, you must surely bear it." Turner was a deeply religious man with strong convictions. Before the rebellion took place, Turner ran away from his master's plantation sometime in 1825, but he decided to return after he had a vision from God that compelled him to return.
For he who knoweth his master's will, and doeth it not, shall be beaten with many stripes. Luke 12:47. This vision, combined with a passage from the book of Romans, chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, "Let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Surely let a God-fearing man like Nat Turner to return to bondage or risk eternal damnation for going against the will of God."
In his vision, he had confessed that he shouldn't indulge his earthly wishes for freedom, but rather he was to serve the kingdom of heaven from bondage. From then on, Turner continued to have visions that convinced him even more to engage in a fight against the institution of slavery. Turner was convinced that he was born to lead something great for the cause of his race and people. And by the signs in the heavens that it would make known to me when I should commence the great work, and until the first sign appeared I should conceal it from the knowledge of men. And on the appearance of the sign, the eclipse of the sun last February, I should arise and prepare myself and slay my enemies with their own weapons. In the year 1831, Turner waited for a sign from God, and in February of 1831 he received that sign. An eclipse emerged in the sky that beckoned Turner and his followers to engage in the cause. At 2 a.m. on the morning of August 21st, Turner and his men killed a family of Joseph Travis, his last plantation owner. From then on, Turner and his men went house to house killing more whites and recruiting more followers, all the while picking up supplies, money, ammunition, and firearms. It was estimated that Turner managed to gather 50 to 60 men before the white citizens of Southampton realized what had happened. The battle between the white militia and Turner's men ensued from August 21st to August 23rd. In the aftermath of the revolt, 55 whites had been killed. However, the state executed 55 slaves that participated in the revolt, and over 200 slaves were killed by angry white mobs after the rebellion took place. Turner was in his hiding spot for 6 weeks, but was found by a local militiaman named Benjamin Phipps, who was armed with a gun, and Turner with only a knife in his possession. Turner relented and was captured on October 30th, convicted on the 1st of November, and executed on the 11th of November. He was hanged, decapitated, skinned, and dismembered in front of a roaring crowd.
Why is Turner's confession still important today? Reason number 1. His recorded confession permitted people who were living at the time and future populations awareness of what had occurred on the night of August 22, 1831. With Turner's recorded and kept confession, generations will recall this uprising in depth and won't overlook Nat Turner's revolt. After Turner's decease, the confession became popular in the US and remains so until today. If Nat Turner did not confess, there's a high chance that people living during that time and future generations would have totally forgotten Nat Turner and his famous rebellion. Reason number 2. Turner admitted to having a key role personally in the rebellion. He directly participated in the killings. It was courageous for him to confess that he committed such acts during the revolt. Besides Turner providing details about the revolt, it is very crucial to note that Turner admitted his personal involvement in the rebellion. There's a quote from Greenberg's book, The Confessions of Nat Turner and Related Documents, which indicated Turner's direct role in the massacres that occurred in the rebellion. Miss Margaret, when I discovered her, had concealed herself in the corner. On my approach, she fled, but was soon overtaken, and after repeated blows with a sword, I killed her by a blow to the head. Margaret was the daughter from the Whitehead family, a white family who were attacked by Turner and his fellow soldiers. She attempted to flee the horrific scene, but failed to do so, causing her ultimate death. It must have been very hard for Turner to confess that he committed such atrocity. Therefore, it was brave for him to be able to tell the truth even if it was something bad. Reason number 3. U.S. government took his rebellion critically, but despite serious precautions, Turner's death did little, if anything, to end anti-slavery movements. His confession was used by both slavery and anti-slavery groups. Language used to describe the rebellion in the confession clearly indicates how effective and bloody this revolt was. In fact, it was the bloodiest and most effective rebellion in this nation's history. Turner's revolt was taken with serious precautions, but his decease did not end tensions against slavery. The U.S. government limited the already restricted rights for African Americans. Even with such precautions, opposition to slavery was far from over. The debate of slavery continued for the next 3 decades, leading to the Civil War. It is believed that Turner's uprising was a key event that provided a hint for the future Civil War between the North and the South. In addition, the North, which had many abolitionists, and the South used Turner's confession for their benefits. In the case of the Northern abolitionists, Turner's confession gave them a hero for the crusade against slavery. On the other hand, Southern states used the confession against Turner and those against slavery, declaring that Turner was a violent figure.
As my colleagues have already mentioned, Nat Turner claimed to be a prophet and often compared himself to Moses and Jesus. Seek ye the kingdom of heaven, and all things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Because Nat Turner was literate, he was able to read the Bible and be captured by it. Considering what he had gone through as a slave, this passage probably touched him more than any of us could possibly fathom. The kingdom of heaven, as described in Revelation 21:3, is described as, God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more, neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. This must have sounded like a wonderful, fantastic, unbelievable place that would not only add good things, but would also remove all of the bad things. The work, the inhumanity, and the chains of slavery would be removed in the kingdom of heaven. Every time the Spirit spoke to Nat Turner, it's almost identical to when the Spirit of God spoke to Moses through the burning bush in the book of Exodus. Just as the Spirit asked Moses to lead the Israelites to the land of the Canaanites, it asked Nat Turner to lead his people to their own kingdom of heaven. Because of the influence that religion, and more specifically these specific passages, had on Nat Turner's decision to start the rebellion, our team offers Nat Turner's Bible for consideration as one of the artifacts for this traveling time capsule.
Nat Turner believed he was a prophet of God and took it upon himself to seek emancipation. Turner led the African American people to revolt against the chains of their masters and of the society in which they lived. He looked to God as his leader and strove to redemption of his faith, his life, and his people. Turner's actions influenced not only the African Americans of his time, but as a marker in history for generations to come. Bob Marley wrote and sang about these same ideas nearly 150 years later, imploring for people to demand freedom. The words of Marley's songs were taken from a speech given by Marcus Garvey in Nova Scotia during October 1937. None but ourselves can free our minds. Like Turner, Marley recognized the mental and physical chains in society, and like so many, knew he deserved more. Nat Turner was a key factor in the history of African American emancipation through his words and his actions. Current Hollywood movies attempt to portray the valiant efforts of men like Turner.
Remember me? I like the way you die, boy.
God damn son of a bitch!
Y'all want to see something?
And while this glorification is not nearly an accurate portrayal of events such as the rebellion, it is still important to recognize their existence and their impact in current-day culture.
We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted.
Yes, we can.